Good morning, I'm in Kabul and I'm very pleased to be in the home of Mahbouba Seraj, who has had an interesting career here in Kabul and in Afghanistan, involved with UNIFEM, which is an organisation promoting women's rights, and now is involved with an organisation called Equal Access. She's absolutely passionate about her country, Afghanistan, and the people, and I'm absolutely delighted to have a chance to talk to her this morning and ask her a few questions. Good morning.
Good morning.
It's very good of you to allow me to come and see you on a Friday, which is a holiday day for you.
Yes, it's holiday day and it's also a day that I'm fasting, so sorry I can't join you with the tea or anything, and I couldn't offer you anything more.
Okay, thank you. You've been involved with human rights here in Afghanistan now for many years, and one of the things we were talking about before we started this interview was your involvement with UNIFEM and trying to promote women to get involved in politics here in Afghanistan.
Right.
And I gather that wasn't a huge success.
From my point of view, no, it wasn't.
Okay, just explain to me briefly, would you please, why you couldn't encourage more women to get involved in politics in Afghanistan?
Well, I mean, these women actually, as I say, maybe they are involved already in politics because they are the members of parliament in Afghanistan. But what I couldn't do really, working for UNIFEM at the time, I couldn't get, the group of women that they are the parliamentarians representing Afghanistan to get together and form this coalition of women that will be, and they would just work for the cause of women in Afghanistan. And I wanted them to forget about where they came from, which ethnicity they belonged to, whether they were Shias, they were Sunnis, they were Ismailis, they were, that was not the point. The point was for all of them to get together and work as a group for promoting the rights of women in Afghanistan and for standing behind their sisters and creating laws that will protect the women of Afghanistan in the future. And unfortunately, I couldn't get more than 24 of them together by the time I was working with them.
And how many members of parliament do you have in Afghanistan?
Well, actually, 33% of the parliamentarian members are women in Afghanistan. It's about, I would say, between the lower house and the upper house, it's about 80-something, 86 women altogether.
In areas of Afghanistan at the moment where the Taliban have got a control, are they continuing with their policy that women should not be educated, women should not be seen out in the street without their veils, the very strict rules they had when they were in full control of Afghanistan?
Well, from what I'm hearing in these areas, you see right now the Taliban, wherever they are there, but of course, nobody says that, they are there like kind of officially. So what I'm hearing, the things that are happening, which is, the reports that are coming, like they are burning schools, they are closing the schools that are for girls, they are, so these things keep on happening. So that means that yes, they are not, or the women that they were working for NGOs or international organizations in the area are no longer allowed to be working there. Yes, they are being a lot strict on them, but of course this is not, official, because officially they are not supposed to be there.
I was disappointed to hear in a couple of talks that I've listened to while I've been here in the country, notably from the British ambassador, that when the Russians moved in 1979, a lot of your talent in this country, both male and female, moved overseas. Yeah. The Russians went, and a lot of them returned with great hope for Afghanistan.
Absolutely.
We then got the Taliban in charge, and they were here till about 2002, right, until the forces came in and removed them. And I gather a lot of that, during that period of the Taliban, a lot of your talent went overseas, and they're now not coming back.
Yeah, unfortunately, that has happened. Actually, not only in 2002, I think about, kind of slowly they went back. By 2003, 2004, a whole lot of people that came to this country, they were gone. And no, they haven't come back. They haven't come back.
These are difficult times in Afghanistan at the moment. It's clear that the Taliban are continuing their insurgency. There's 4 roads into Kabul, I believe, that are now not safe. And the security situation here leaves a lot to be desired, and I know is causing a lot of concern, not only amongst the Afghan people, but those agencies that are involved here trying to help you secure and rebuild your country. How do you think the next 18 months, 2 years are going to go?
To tell you the honest truth, this is anybody's guess. I don't know. I really don't know what is going to be happening. It all depends on so many things, because the situations in Afghanistan is not like kind of, cut and dry, that this and that can happen. So many things can happen. I do not believe, however, in my heart, nor do I think that the world will allow the Taliban to come back to Afghanistan and have any kind of a ruling in here. I don't believe that will happen. But what actually is very scary to me is the chaos that is going to be created in Afghanistan because of the problems that we do have for the first 24 hours, 48 hours, 72 hours, until the international forces, they kind of get together and kind of get a handle to what's going on. There might be huge trouble, especially in this capital city.
You have elections coming up next year, and I know that you're very interested in this because of your previous involvement with UNIFEM, and you take a very keen interest in Afghan politics, and I'm aware that you're a broadcaster here in Afghanistan. How do you think the elections are going to go next year?
Well, the elections, I'm just hoping that there will be an election, even though at some parts of Afghanistan, when they mentioned about the election, everybody, they went like, oh, you must be crazy, because the security over here is not well enough to have an election. But I am still hoping for the election to go on as scheduled, even though it has been postponed. It was supposed to be this coming spring, but now they moved it back to kind of around autumn sometime. But it is very important that Afghanistan should have another election. So I am hopeful for it, but we really have to see what is going to be happening until then.
If you had an opportunity to speak to the world leaders, and they asked you what you thought was the solution to the problem in Afghanistan, what would be your response to them?
To the world leaders, I would say to the world leaders that, first of all, they should be willing to change anything that they have done so far to solve this problem, and look at it from an entirely different point of view. And for them to really, this time, get together, and instead of the same group of people that they have been asking their opinions for the last 10, 11 years, and these people have been giving them or showing them the wrong way, maybe they should change and come up with and talk to another bunch of people from Afghanistan and see what they have to say about this country. Maybe ask them about their opinions and what they know of this land, and for the leaders to be ready to say, okay, we made a mistake in this area, okay, maybe this did not work, maybe we should be ready to take another approach. And really, how shall I say, reassess the whole approach to Afghanistan, and then see what they can do as far as helping this country is concerned. Because you see, in a land when there is no security, when there is no... Do you know that people in Afghanistan, actually, there are some parts of this country that people are eating grass because there is no food? When there is no education, when there is no health care, when there is no food, when there is no shelter, honestly, I think that the rest really does not mean much for these people. What do you say to a woman or to a family with her kids around her that they are all dying of hunger? Or do you talk to them about human rights? Do you talk to them about... What do you talk to them about? Because the first thing that they are concerned is for them to have something to eat, for her kids to stop crying because they're hungry, or for them to have a shelter when the winter comes. So the whole reconstruction of Afghanistan, the money, I'm so sorry to say, was not spent in the proper way. It didn't go for the reconstruction of Afghanistan. It went into a lot of private pockets. And if that's the way it's going to continue, then I am sorry to say, I think the world really is going to lose Afghanistan.
One of the biggest concerns here in Afghanistan is the issue of the production of opium. The United Nations report that came out about 10 days ago said that the UN had identified that opium production here in Afghanistan had dropped by 19% against last year. But they did also comment that that was probably because of the drought, not because any particular programme was working to try and reduce this. What is your thought on how Afghanistan could solve the problem of opium production?
You know, you see, we have to have some kind of a how shall I say, unified approach towards this problem. Right now in Afghanistan, there are all of the forces that are working, you know, towards eradication of this. They are not of the same mind. Some parts of the world, they want to do one thing about it, and other parts of the world, they want to do something else about it. At the same time, Afghanistan is becoming like Colombia. There is a huge mafia working here right now, that they are using this opium for their own. I mean, dear God, we're walking on the streets of Kabul and we call the houses that are built, we're calling them the opium buildings. I mean, there are people that are actually making tons of money out of this. And it's becoming very dangerous to talk about it because people are actually losing their lives. The guy that was supposed to be working on opium, at the ministry, they killed him in front of his house just a few days ago. So I really don't know how to solve this problem. But the world, they really have to decide on something to be of one voice, one decision, and do something about this. Because opium is no longer in the hands of the little piddly Afghans that they are taking it, you know, across the border into Tajikistan. That's not where the opium goes. Opium gets out of this country in such a massive, big amounts that it really scares me. How is it getting out? Who is involved in here? What is happening? There's something much bigger than the Afghan people know actually is involved in here. So maybe the international world should really find out who is behind it, number one, and then see what they can do about it.
Most of the help you're getting here in Afghanistan now comes from organisations from the West. You don't really see a great deal of activity here coming from support from your near neighbours. Russia, obviously, because of what happened with their occupation, we can probably understand that one. Iran, I'm not certain what support they're giving you. We are aware that they have 3 policies towards Afghanistan, and of course then you have the problems coming from Pakistan. You have the government line, the Pakistan government line regarding Afghanistan, and then their notorious intelligence service, the ISI, seem to be working separately alone. Do you feel that there is enough dialogue regionally between Afghanistan and its near neighbours to resolving your problems?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. There's got to be a lot more. Instead of actually really maybe sitting around and, accusing people of what they are doing, which because they really are doing it. For example, Pakistan, we are accusing them. We really have to sit down and have dialogues with them. And the international world should be sitting down and having dialogues with these countries as well, because they are our neighbors. They affect our lives directly, depending on what kind of policies they have. It's affecting Afghanistan. So no, we don't have enough dialogues, and we really should get more of it going on if we really want to solve these problems.
Is that because the West is heavily involved here? They feel they don't want to get involved? I mean, Iran has its problems with the West. Would Iran arguably be more supportive of you if the West wasn't involved here? Bearing in mind that I didn't know until I came here that the drug problem is very serious in Iran. I thought they'd got a very firm control on this. I gather not.
Well, it's like Afghanistan, you see, there is like, Afghanistan problem is going on, and then the rest of the world's problems is going on around it. So there are all of these circles, that they are kind of circling around. Afghanistan with its problems, and then the interest of the Western world, or not the interest of the Western world, towards Iran is on one end, and then Pakistan is on another end, and then Russia is on another end, and all of this, and then there is Afghanistan. So these countries, the Western world, they have their own, how shall I say, battles to fight with each one of these countries around us, like right now because of Georgia, what's happening with the Russians, because of the atomic powers of Iran, what is happening with Iran in the United States, because of in Pakistan, because of the way Musharraf was going on, talking from both sides of his mouth, and everybody in Pakistan. So the world, they have their relationships, and then they have their relationships with Afghanistan. So I don't think they really do know clearly that they should really separate these things. Like their interest towards those countries is one thing, and then their interest of those countries towards Afghanistan is an entirely different ballgame. So I don't know, maybe this whole game has to be played differently.
Mm-hmm. I asked you a question earlier before we did this piece to film, and I'd just like to go through it again. Please tell me again, why don't you get involved in politics in Afghanistan?
The reason why I don't get involved, and as I told you, I am, number one, I'm extremely honest. Number two, that honesty does not allow me to play the political games. I cannot really be playing that because I will be compromising what I believe in, and I don't know what I'm going to be compromising and to whom and to what extent. So that's why I really don't want to do that. But as I told you, if I could go through politics as a bulldozer, yeah, I would, definitely. But that's the reason why I'm not doing it.
Yeah, thanks for going through that again, and I just would comment to the people viewing this that whilst you don't get directly involved in politics as an MP yourself, you're doing an awful lot for your country in the way that you see best.
That's right.
Returning to the issue of women's rights here in Afghanistan, since the fall of the Taliban in this country, how far have women's rights progressed in this country?
Well, you know, one thing I want to tell you about the women of Afghanistan. They are amongst the most amazing women I've had the pleasure of knowing in the world. I mean, the women of the world, they are fantastic, and women of Afghanistan are absolutely. What these women did, you know, the time when Taliban were here, you know, with their underground schools, with their struggles, with their, I mean, they are unbelievable, and they still are. And right after Taliban, these women, they wanted to, you know, talk about human rights, know about human rights, learn about it. And especially human rights according to Islam, it's a big part of it. Like we are very involved in that. For example, the right to education for the men and women according to Islam, it really is equal. And the right to, you know, the right to marriages. We don't want to give, you know, our girls at the age of 12 to be married or be sold to a man. The right to inheritance, which is something that goes on in Islam. A woman maybe gets half of the inheritance than her brother, but she has the right to the inheritance to her father. And so the organizations are working, the women are working towards it. There is so much more. They've become really so much more knowledgeable. They know more about their rights. At times that actually scares me, because in a country that still one part of it is in so much darkness, you know, these women that they know about their rights and they're so enlightened, they could put themselves in danger, but at the same time it's an absolutely pleasure to see them working in this way and doing and learning, and they're really trying very hard. So as far as that's concerned, I think they're doing great.
Thank you. And as that's an issue very, very close to your heart, that's a good point to finish this interview. And Mahbouba, Seraj, thank you very, very much for seeing me this morning. And I'm sure back in the United Kingdom, people will be pleased to hear your views. Thank you.
Thank you so much, John. Thank you very much.